right now, 7 out of 10 people who try to visit your website will actually abandon it before it even finishes loading.
Yeah, it's a brutal statistic.
It really is. I mean, welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We are looking at a topic that, if you run a business online, this is literally make or break.
Absolutely.
You could have the most innovative product, the sharpest branding, and the most compelling copy. But if your underlying web architecture is bloated, well, you are effectively locking the front door of your business while a line of customers just waits outside.
Right, they're just standing out there getting frustrated.
Exactly. So today, we are tearing down the walls of traditional web design. Our mission is to unpack the mechanics of specialized web architecture, specifically focusing on the Oxygen Builder platform. And we'll look at how specialized developer agencies, teams like Viral Chili, are completely reconstructing the internet's user experience from the server level up.
Because that 7 out of 10 metric, that is just the brutal reality of the modern web. We've kind of been conditioned to view web design purely as this visual medium, like a static painting.
Right. Like, is the logo big enough? Are the brand colors accurate?
Exactly. But the visual surface is really just the absolute tip of the iceberg. Underneath that surface, there's a highly complex and honestly often chaotic engine room.
For sure.
And the fundamental truth of modern user experience, or UX, is that the underlying platform and architecture dictate the reality of the user's journey. If that foundation is cracked, if the engine is misfiring, no amount of pretty paint on the front end is going to save the house.
Well, to understand why a platform like Oxygen Builder is such a massive departure from the norm, I think we first have to look at the baseline most of the internet is built on, which is standard WordPress setups.
Right, which powers, what, nearly half the web?
Yeah, something crazy like that. But the way traditional themes operate, it just fundamentally restricts what a business can actually do.
Because a traditional WordPress theme isn't just a collection of colors and fonts. It is a rigid, predefined PHP structure. When a developer installs a standard theme, they are locked into the original developer's logic.
Even when people try to, bypass those restrictions using popular visual page builders like Elementor or Divi, they run into a massive structural wall, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. Those visual builders, they don't replace the theme, they just work within its restrictions. They essentially sit right on top of the default code base, loading their own massive files on top of the files. The theme is already forcing the browser to load.
It's kind of like decorating a rented apartment.
Okay, like that.
You can change the curtains, you can bring in some really nice furniture, maybe put down a colorful rug to make it feel like your own. But at the end of the day, you cannot move the structural walls. You can't change the plumbing. You are fundamentally constrained by the landlord's original floor plan.
Yeah, and every time you try to force that rented apartment to do something it wasn't engineered to do, like, say, knocking a hole in a load-bearing wall to add a custom feature, you create structural friction.
Right, things start breaking.
Exactly. Oxygen Builder approaches the problem by basically eliminating the landlord entirely. It doesn't sit on top of a theme. It bypasses the WordPress theme system completely.
So instead of renting the apartment and trying to mask the ugly wallpaper, it's like buying the raw plot of land and architecting the house from the ground up.
That blank canvas is everything.
Yeah.
The developer has absolute granular control over the document object model, the DOM, which is essentially the skeleton of the web page.
So they aren't fighting against a pre-existing structure.
Right. They aren't trying to override someone else's code. They are the architects of the code itself. Every single element, from a simple text block to a complex interactive database query, serves both form and function perfectly. Because it was engineered for that specific purpose and nothing else.
Which brings us to the invisible killer of websites, code bloat.
Oh boy.
If you're listening to this and you've ever managed a standard WordPress site, you probably know the pain of installing like 5 different plugins just to get a simple image slider to work on your homepage.
It's a nightmare.
Behind the scenes, that creates an absolute mess of bloated code. But I really want to break down the mechanics here. When we say Oxygen outputs clean code, what is physically happening between the server and the user's browser that makes such a massive difference?
Well, think about what happens when a browser requests a standard bloated web page. It reads the HTML document from top to bottom. On a traditional setup, the theme might include a massive 500 kilobyte JavaScript file for a video player and a huge CSS file for complex gallery layouts.
Even if the page you're loading doesn't have a video player.
Exactly. Even if the page is just a simple text blog post with 0 videos and 0 galleries, the underlying theme still forces your browser to download, read, and parse all of those massive files before it will render the text on your screen. We call these render blocking resources. Oxygen Builder eliminates this by generating highly optimized selective code. It only outputs the exact HTML, CSS, and minimal JavaScript required for the specific elements that actually exist on that specific page. Nothing more.
So the browser isn't forced to dig through an entire library of code just to find the instructions for a single paragraph.
Precisely.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second. We're talking about kilobytes and milliseconds here. Does a structurally optimized DOM and the absence of render blocking scripts really make a tangible difference to the average person who is just, trying to buy a pair of shoes online?
It translates directly to revenue. That invisible back-end efficiency is what dictates whether your customer sees the shoes instantly or watches a blank white screen load for 4 seconds.
And people just don't have the patience for 4 seconds anymore.
Not at all. As we established right at the start, 70% of consumers explicitly tie their willingness to buy to page speed. When an agency prioritizes structural performance optimization at the code level, they are fundamentally altering the sales funnel.
Because attention spans are measured in fractions of a second now.
Right. If your incredibly lean Oxygen Build site loads in 800 milliseconds and your competitor's bloated site takes 4 seconds, you win the customer. Speed is not an IT metric. It is a primary conversion metric.
And you have to factor in the environment where that speed is actually being tested.
Yep.
Like, you might have a site that loads fast on a powerful desktop computer hardwired to a fiber optic network.
Sure.
But what happens when that user is on a crowded train trying to browse your store using a spotty 5G mobile connection on a smartphone processor?
That is the mobile mandate right there. The performance gap becomes exponentially wider on mobile devices. A desktop processor can brute force its way through bloated code fairly quickly. A smartphone processor will just choke on it.
Yeah.
This is why responsive design is the absolute baseline requirement for the modern web.
But wait, responsive design has been around for over a decade. Doesn't every modern builder just automatically shrink things to fit a vertical screen? Why is mobile optimization still considered an advanced technical hurdle?
Well, sizing elements down so they don't bleed off the edge of the screen. That's basic responsive design. But simply squishing a 3-column layout into a single column doesn't mean the user experience is actually good.
Right. It usually looks pretty clunky.
Exactly. True mobile optimization requires conditionally altering the flow of the application. With Oxygen Builder's granular breakpoints, developers aren't just resizing, they are physically rearranging the hierarchy of the DOM for mobile users.
So changing what actually loads.
Yes, they might hide heavy background videos entirely, swap out complex navigation menus for streamlined, touch-friendly interfaces, and prioritize totally different calls to action based on the device. And the data shows that 53% of mobile visitors will abandon a page if it takes longer than 3 seconds to process and load.
Over half of your mobile traffic just completely gone in the time it takes to take a deep breath.
Yeah. If the site just visually fits on the screen but still forces the mobile browser to download desktop-sized assets and bloated structural code, you've lost the user. The mastery of a specialized developer lies in creating a mobile experience that feels native to the phone, loading instantly and reacting flawlessly to touch inputs.
Okay, so let's say the developer nails the technical foundation. The code is exceptionally clean, the site loads in under a second on my phone, and I haven't abandoned the page. You've successfully gotten me through the front door.
Awesome.
But if the interior of the house is a maze, I'm still going to turn around and leave. The challenge immediately shifts to navigation and visual trust. Right?
100%. Because Oxygen operates as a blank canvas without theme constraints, an agency has absolute creative freedom over the visual hierarchy. They can implement custom typography, precise spatial relationships, and micro-interactions that perfectly align with the brand's unique identity.
And that builds trust.
It does. When a website possesses that level of cohesive, bespoke authenticity, it subconsciously signals professionalism and security to the user. But visual trust is only the first step. The structure of the information itself has to be completely intuitive.
It's the psychology of a brilliantly designed grocery store layout.
Ooh, good analogy.
Yeah, you walk in and you don't even realize you're being guided. The produce is fresh and vibrant right at the entrance to build trust. The dairy is exactly where you expect it to be, all the way in the back. The aisles are wide, the signage is legible. You naturally find exactly what you're looking for without an ounce of frustration.
And because it's easy, you stay longer.
Exactly, because the experience feels so effortless, you end up spending more time and usually more money exploring the rest of the store.
And in web design, a frustrating grocery store layout equals a massive bounce rate. If a user has to hunt for the pricing page, or if the main menu drops down and obscures the content they were trying to read, cognitive friction spikes.
They just get annoyed.
Right. By engineering logical page hierarchies and strategic, frictionless call-to-action placements, developers guide users smoothly toward conversion goals. The experience feels completely natural, so the user stays engaged.
But let's escalate this a bit. Browsing an intuitive layout is one thing, but pulling out a credit card and making a purchase is a completely different level of psychological commitment.
Oh, completely.
Which brings us to dynamic data and e-commerce. If an agency is pulling in dynamic data based on a user's behavior or geography, that means the server has to do a real-time database check before it can paint the page. Doesn't that contradict the whole lightning-fast load time rule we just spent 10 minutes establishing?
You would think so, yeah. And on a bloated WordPress setup, heavy database queries absolutely will tank the load speed. But this is where server-side caching and intelligent conditional logic come in. Oxygen allows developers to write highly optimized queries that retrieve only the specific data points needed from the database, rather than loading entire datasets.
So what does that mechanical efficiency actually feel like to the person holding the phone? Give me a real-world example.
Okay, imagine logging on to a global outdoor apparel brand. If it's a standard static site, every single user sees the same generic hero image of a winter coat.
Right?
But with dynamic data integration, the site references your geographic IP address in milliseconds. So the user in a snowy Chicago winter instantly sees the heavy parkas and snow boots front and center. Meanwhile, a user logging in from a sunny beach in Miami dynamically sees the new line of lightweight rain jackets and hiking shorts. The platform actually anticipates the visitor's unique context.
That's incredible. It transforms the site from a passive digital brochure into an active, personalized application.
Exactly. Now, inject that power into WooCommerce, which, is the underlying e-commerce engine for a massive portion of the internet. Standard WooCommerce checkouts are, well, they're notoriously rigid.
Oh, absolutely. It's like you add to cart, you go to a cart page, you click proceed, you go to a massive billing form, you review, you finally pay.
Right. And every single one of those page loads is an opportunity for the user to just get distracted and abandon the cart entirely.
It's friction at literally the worst possible moment.
Because an Oxygen developer controls the entire DOM, they can systematically dismantle that standard WooCommerce flow. They can strip away the mandatory multi-step WordPress checkout pages entirely.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. Instead, they can engineer a custom one-click slide-out cart overlay that securely processes Apple Pay or Google Pay without the user ever leaving the product page. They eliminate the friction, which directly and measurably increases the conversion rate.
We've covered some incredibly powerful capabilities here. I mean, lean code, sub-second mobile speeds, dynamic geographic personalization, frictionless one-click checkouts. If I'm a business owner listening to this, I might be highly tempted to say, hey, this platform sounds incredible. I'll just buy the Oxygen Builder software license myself and build my own site to save the agency fee.
The classic DIY trap.
Right. So why is the specific partnership with a specialized agency? And our source material uses an agency called Viral Chili as the prime example here. Why is that so crucial? Why shouldn't a business owner just DIY this?
Well, think about the level of mechanical engineering we've been discussing. Oxygen Builder is it's essentially a Formula One engine. It is incredibly fast, highly capable, and completely unrestrictive. But if you don't know how to tune the aerodynamics or map the database queries or write the conditional PHP logic, you were just going to spin out and crash the car.
A professional tool is completely dependent on the professional wielding it. You can't just buy the F1 car and expect to win the race without a world-class pit crew.
Exactly. The technical reality is that while anyone can drag and drop elements on a screen, architecting a scalable, secure, and hyper-optimized relational database requires a specialized engineer. This is exactly why specialized agencies exist and why white label partnerships are so common in this space.
Yeah.
An agency like Viral Chili, they don't just make the site look pretty. Their developers understand the underlying mechanics of technical SEO, server-side rendering, and complex WooCommerce integrations.
So they're building the foundation.
Right, they build the structural foundation flawlessly so that the site doesn't degrade and bloat over time as the business scales and adds, say, thousands of new products.
Which honestly frees the business owner from having to become a part-time back-end developer. They can actually focus on running their company.
Yes, exactly.
But evaluating an agency is critical. You can't just choose the partner offering the cheapest quote because a cheap quote usually means they are cutting corners in the engine room where you can't immediately see it.
When evaluating a specialized oxygen developer, you must actively interrogate their performance optimization approach. You shouldn't just look at screenshots of their past work. You need to request references and actually test their past clients' websites through tools like Google PageSpeed Insights.
Prove the speed actually exists.
Right. You need a partner who provides clear technical documentation and a structured handoff process. The agency should be building custom, simplified back-end controls so that the business owner can easily update product inventory or publish blog posts without ever having to touch the complex Oxygen Builder interface themselves.
Well, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. We started by completely tearing down the idea of a website as a simple digital business card. We explored how bypassing traditional restrictive themes to build from the ground up eliminates render blocking code bloat.
And we saw how that structural efficiency translates to lightning-fast mobile load times, surviving that critical 3-second abandonment window.
We examine how total control over the DOM allows developers to build intuitive, custom-branded navigation hierarchies that, reduce cognitive friction and keep users deeply engaged.
And we broke down the mechanics of dynamic data, how conditional logic personalizes the user experience in real time, and how dismantling those clunky checkout flows drastically increases e-commerce conversions.
Finally, we unpacked why harnessing this Formula One engine really requires the technical mastery of a specialized agency like Viral Chili to ensure long-term scalability and security.
The shift from theme-based design to foundational web architecture is truly a complete paradigm shift in how we approach digital experiences.
It truly is. We want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope this conversation gave you a new mechanical lens through which to view every website you interact with moving forward, and perhaps a blueprint for how to approach your own digital infrastructure.
But before we sign off, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. We spent a lot of time today discussing how custom architecture allows for hyper-personalized dynamic data that adapts instantly to user geography and behavior. If that level of server-side conditional logic is already this robust and accessible today, how long until the concept of a static website becomes entirely obsolete? Are we approaching a near future where every single website we visit acts less like a public broadcast and entirely like a custom-tailored application that physically and psychologically rearranges its layout, its copy, and its offerings in real time based purely on our individual digital footprints?
Wow. Something to think about the next time you log on. Thanks for diving deep with us.